will be in our text tonight. When I was a young teenage boy, there was a friend of my dad's, an elderly gentleman in the neighborhood or in the community, was a real estate agent and a collector of junk. And my dad and him got along fine because my dad collected a lot of junk. And we would go over there and Dad would deliver milk to him. My dad was a milkman and delivered milk to different stores. And we would take that man, we'd stop by because he was one of the, right as we were leaving town and going to go finish up the day, we would stop by his house, take him a gallon of milk. Well, not his house, but his office, his real estate office, and also his collection of junk out there. And every time he would see me, being 70, 80 years old, he was probably not near as old as I thought he was whenever I was 13. But he'd always say, "Kurt, how's your love life?" Now, his intentions were to embarrass a 13 or 14-year-old boy. And anytime he was somewhere and there would be a young girl, he'd say, "You want me to go talk to her?" But when we think about this, it's kind of funny. And how's your love life? But when we think about Jesus, Jesus came into this world to show the love of God. And he came to show the love of God for a lost and dying world. But I want you to know what Jesus did on the cross will have no avail if we don't have love for people. And so I ask you this evening, how is your love life? And as we read in our text, John 15, we read in verse 12 through 17, Jesus gives a command. He says, this is my command, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends, if ye do whatsoever I command you. And henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what the Father doeth, but I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, and ordained you that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, and whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it you. These things I command you, that ye love one another. And as we see here, we see this, our text, our job today is to love one another. The world needs to see that we love one another. It's one thing for us to go out and tell people about the wrath of God and tell people about that they need to repent. But if they don't see the love of God in us, do they want to be a part of it? And so as we see here, there's three things that John brings out. We are commanded to love, we are called to love, and we are chosen to love. And as you see here, the start out here, he commands to love. He says, I give a commandment. And in chapter 13 and verse 34, he says, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. A new commandment. It's amazing. A new commandment. Is it any different than any of the other commandments? As you read the Ten Commandments, if you remember, there were these lawyers, these Pharisees that came to Jesus trying to trip Jesus up and asked, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus says to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and all thy might. And then Jesus doesn't stop there. Jesus always goes above and beyond. And the second is like unto it, that you are to love your neighbor as yourself. and there are no laws against this. Don't kill. Why? Because you love God and you love your neighbor. Don't steal because you love God and you love your neighbor. Don't commit adultery because you love God and you love your neighbor. Don't, you name it. It's because you love God and you love your neighbor. And all these things we do, and we see here he's giving us a command to love. But we got to be careful when we think about this. He says, I command that you love one another, but here's the standard. As I have loved you. You know, we wouldn't have Unity Baptist Church and Harmony Baptist Church if we would learn to love one another the way that Jesus loved. Now, the reason I say that is usually the joke is you've got Unity Baptist Church and they have a split and they have Harmony Baptist Church. But as we come and serve God, the unfortunate thing about that is it's a reality. So many churches have been started because they don't get along and serve the Lord, and so they split, and the community knows every bit of it. But Jesus is telling us, I'm giving you a command that you love one another, and love like I do. You know, the greatest way to fix a problem between you and a brother is remember how much you've been forgiven and see, does it measure up to what he's done to you? Anything that you've got any problem you've got between someone else, you've done greater to God. And God forgave you. And God, not only did God forgive you, God sent His Son to die for you. So tell me something. What can someone do to you that you've done that's greater than what you've done to God? But yet Jesus came and He died for our sins. He died for us. He died for these guys right here, and they're not paying attention. This is the last few minutes. As you think about this, this is the last few minutes, or maybe the last hour or two, that they're going to walk with Jesus before the crucifixion, or before He's going to be arrested. They've taken the Lord's Supper. They've gone out in the garden. This is the last few hours that they're going to have with Jesus, and they're not paying attention. They're about to see Him arrested, Him voluntarily go down with the army that comes to arrest Him, take the beating, take the whippings, not speak a word. They're about to see Him basically become the weakest man they've ever seen in their life. And He says, I'm telling you to love one another the way that I have loved you. And as you see here, He says in verse 13, no greater love has anybody had than someone would lay down their life for a friend. You think about that. In our mind, we're thinking, man, Jesus laying down the cross, and yes, that's probably what Jesus is letting them know. I'm about to go lay down my life for them, for you. But in their minds, they don't know it yet. They don't grasp it yet. It makes you sometimes, I'd love to be able to ask Peter and John, what were you thinking when Jesus kept talking about dying? What were you thinking when Jesus kept talking about, here's your sign? So as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so shall the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. What were you thinking? Did you not grasp it? I wouldn't have either. They're looking for David to come out with a slingshot and knock down the giant. They're not looking for the lamb to die. But Jesus says there's no greater love for a person to lay down his life for a friend. And we understand this. As you think about, especially like Memorial Day, we think about that's coming up pretty soon. And we think about all those soldiers who went to war and died and gave their life because they loved this country and the people of this country and what this country stands for. There's no greater love than that, than to die for someone, to be able to stand in front of someone and say, I'll take the punishment. There's no greater love than that. And if you ever notice this, as you pay attention to this, as Jesus began to talk to them there, He says there's no greater love than that. So he begins to here, as we see, He goes from the command to a call. Called you to love me. He says in verse 15, he says, henceforth no longer call you a servant. Now I call you a friend. This is something new. For the history of Abraham to Jesus, they've not looked at God as friend. They've looked at God in fear. They've looked at God in servitude. They have not looked at Him in the way that Jesus speaks. When Jesus calls God His Father, it makes them furious. You can't have a personal relationship with God. God is on the Mount Sinai, booming and thundering, and we shake and we fear. And we're looking for the Messiah, but we can't sit down and have a meal with the Messiah. We're looking for the Messiah, but He's going to be so holy that we're going to be shaking in our boots around Him. When the thunder roars, people are afraid. Every time that you see even an angel appear in front of people, they fall down in fear and trembling. The relationship between God and man, even from Adam to Jesus, has always been servant. He's the master, I'm the servant, and I'm afraid of Him. But Jesus says, I no longer call you servant. I'm calling you friend. What would that mean to you? All of your life, God has been behind a curtain. All of your life, you've had to bring a lot of bloody lambs, a lot of bloody pigeons, a lot of bloody doves. You've had to bring all the blood. And it's a fearful thing to come in front of that Holy of Holies and come to that altar. And that man that goes and takes your blood that you shed from this lamb or this goat or whatever it is that you brought, and he's going to go into that curtain and he may not come back. Because if he's not done his sacrifice, then God's going to kill him in there. And now God's saying, Jesus is saying, I call you friend. I'm calling you friend. The relationship that we have from God has shifted, or it's about to shift in this situation right here, because whenever Jesus goes to the cross, one of the most beautiful things that you find when Jesus goes to the cross is when there's that darkness and Jesus says, it's finished, and He gives up the ghost and the earthquakes. You know what happens to the temple? That veil rips from heaven down to earth. God's saying, I am now accessible to you. We are now friends of God. And as you see here, there's a blessing that we see here. He's calling us to love one another. It's not just a command. It's gone from a command. You know, there's a whole lot in our life that we think about when we become a Christian. When I first became a Christian, there was a lot of things that I did because I was supposed to. Growing up, there's a lot of things that I did because Daddy said so. I'm going to tell you, it became sweet when I no longer lived in Daddy's house and I no longer had to do what Daddy said, but I did because Dad called. And for once in my life, Dad needed me. Now, God doesn't need me. I hope you understand that. But there's something sweet about that relationship with the Father when you're no longer doing what He says because you're scared of the belt. You're doing what He says because you love Him. And as you see in this situation right here, Jesus is saying, I no longer call you servant. There's no longer this blockage, this barrier between us. Now I'm calling you friend. And why is He calling them friend? Because they know Him. Now it's an interesting thing, John, as he's writing, he's one of the last gospel writers. The interesting thing about his writing is he's dealing with heresy already happening in the Christian churches. You ever heard of agnosticism? This word knowledge, it comes from gnosko, agnosticism. somehow or another you've got some kind of special knowledge. But what Jesus is referring to, you have had revealed to you the knowledge of salvation. And what's about to happen is going to be public. I love how Paul says it. He says, God has not done what he has done in a corner. He's done it in a broad open so that everybody could know. You know, there's the third or fourth day after Jesus died on the cross, all of Jerusalem knew that tomb is empty. They didn't know why. They didn't know who. They didn't know all the details, but they knew that there was a big uproar because the man that they killed earlier in the week is supposed to be in that grave, and he's gone. And there's rumors that they stole his body, and there's rumors that he's alive. And all these people hear about it within the first 24 hours of his resurrection. Jesus appears to his disciples, and they know. We don't have to have some kind of special knowledge. God does not reveal to you something that he doesn't reveal to the rest of the world. The gospel is the same whether you believe it or not. It's out there. You don't have to have some kind of special gifting to be a child of God. You see, that agnosticism can go a whole lot of ways. It can either make you think you're special, and somehow or another you're more elite than everybody else. Or it can have you thinking that somehow or another God gave me more than everybody else did. Either way, it's something that builds you up. But the knowledge that John's bringing out is, or that Jesus is preaching right here, is you know who I am. And it's no secret. Nicodemus come to him in chapter 3 and he says, we know that you are a man of God because of the great works that you do. Nobody can do this. You remember the blind man that Jesus healed? And the Pharisees are so mad and they're coming to him and saying, who did this to you? Who healed you? He says, I don't know. And then later on, Jesus comes to him and he says, he tells him who he is, and I've healed you, I'm Jesus. And he goes back and tells him, oh, it was Jesus. And this guy's been blind from his birth, and they keep hammering after him, and they keep saying, this Jesus is a sinner. And the blind man, I love his story. He says, I don't know about sinners or not. He's never been in the temple. Never been able to go into the temple and hear the word of God. But I know this, a sinner doesn't do the things that this man does because God's with him. People all over the place have known that there's power in Jesus. He's doing something that they've never done before, even among the prophets. Elijah didn't do the things that Jesus did, some of them, but not all of them. All these old prophets and all the things that they read about in their Old Testament, Jesus is doing things they've never seen done before. And Jesus says, you know this. My Father has revealed these things to you. It was Peter, whenever Jesus is asking them, he says, who do they say that I am? Some say you're John the Baptist. Some say you're Elijah. Some of them say that you're a prophet. And Jesus says, who do you say that I am? And Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. He says, well done, Peter, but you've not come up with this. The Father has revealed this to you. So we have been called to love in the knowledge of who Jesus is. We've come to know the knowledge of Jesus Christ. If you're a child of God, you're a child of God because the gospel was preached to you. He called you, and you accepted it. And so you've been called not just to get out of hell. You've been called not just to live a good life. You've been called to love and love well. Love and love like Jesus. And you get to be a part of it. Not by command, but by calling. He's called you and says, I want you to love others. The last thing that we see here, as He's called us, He's revealed to us, He's chosen us to love. I'm not going to let the Calvinists steal the word chosen. We are chosen people. If you're a child of God, you've been chosen by God to do something. And it's to love. No greater gift than love. No greater task than love. We are chosen by God. And it's an interesting thing when you think about this. How many of you got up the day that you were saved, got up and just thought, I'm going to get saved today? Nobody. Paul tells us there's none righteous, no, not one. There's none that seek God. And Paul's quoting the Old Testament. So how do we begin? How do we get saved? Well, first of all, God convicts us. He calls us. And after we put our faith in Him, we are chosen for the good work. God is, don't tell me that you and God has everything worked out and you got your little thing. God never called Long Rangers. And God never called us to be in a monastery somewhere. God called us to come together, and God called us to go out together. God is calling us. He's chosen us to love. He chose us. And the thing that we find here is He says He has chosen us, as we see in verse 16, ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you that you should go and bring forth fruit. You got to go and you got to get some fruit. His ordaining, His choosing is for us to be fruitful. Have you noticed, we've been going through Genesis on Sunday morning, have you noticed how that God commands the world over and over again to be fruitful? Told Adam and Eve, I want you to go and be fruitful. He tells the animals, be fruitful. He tells Noah, after they get off the ark, now go and be fruitful. Multiply. The animals multiply. When did God ever say that's enough? He tells His church and His churches, go and multiply. He tells His first church, go to Jerusalem, go to Samaria, and go to the othermost parts of the world and tell them who I am. Multiply. Go get some fruit. And as we think about what we are chosen to go and ordained to go and get some fruit. And here's the thing about this, going and getting the fruit, we've been anointed or appointed to bear fruit. And what fruit is it that we're bearing? Love. Love will always bring back what God's sending out to do. Loving people. And as we love people, here's the thing about it. Do you think Noah loved the people that he preached to for 120 years? Absolutely. Did any of them come? Just his family? Just his wife, his kids, and their wives. That's all he got. But what was the fruit? The love of God. He loved his children. The children loved God. They got on the boat. Were they perfect? No. But they had fruit. We're here today, aren't we? There's fruit. Sometimes the love of God is not going to produce what we always want it to produce. But I'm going to tell you one thing that it will guaranteedly produce. If you are a child of God, it will produce love. You've been ordained to love. But here's the thing that I see here. A lot of people take this out of context, but as you see here, he's talking about love. In the last part of verse 16, the fruits, the last part of verse 16, it says, and whatsoever you shall ask in my Father's name, He will give it to you. Oh, we've got a lot of preachers that'll preach. And I use the word preachers loosely, but they're making a killing off this verse. Oh, you gotta name it and claim it. Let me ask you something. If you and God are in a good relationship, what are you asking for? If you love God and you love others, what are you asking for? It's not a bigger house. It's not a new car. You're asking for, God, give me souls. God, give me opportunities. And it's even, God, help me love them. Do you remember the Sermon on the Mount? Turn the other cheek, go the extra mile, give them your jacket and your shirt. That takes a lot of love when they're demanding that from you, when they're beating on you. But Jesus says, love them. How are you going to do that? Ask the Father. He's chosen you. He's called you. He's commanded you to do this. And whatever you ask, He'll give it. Whatever you need to produce love to other people, He'll give it. And as we're really going to look at the context of this, this is a love between the brothers. If there's anybody in the world that we as Christians should love, it's other Christians. Why? Because you were told to. Because you're called to. You are ordained to. We've got our differences, folks. Every one of us have got our differences. And some of you are just wrong. And that's you, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Usually if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. That's the way we think sometimes, isn't it? But loving one another is laying down our life, putting down my preference, putting down my desires, so that you can be a better disciple, so that you can be a better fruit gatherer, so that you can help over here. I get rid of me. And if everybody in the church got rid of me and served the Lord and loved one another, it's going to show in such a mighty way that the world's going to go, I want that. That's different. But what do you find in the world today? They go, I don't want any of that. I can go to the bar and find more friends and more love than I can at a church. And unfortunately, a lot of churches have made that true. So I want to ask you tonight, how's your love life? You got a problem with somebody? Love them. Is the problem you? Is the problem your desire? Is the problem that you have with your love? Is it because I've got to have my way? I got news for you. The only one in the church that has the right to have his way is Jesus. And all the rest of us are to obey the command, answer the call, and to fulfill the chosen. Love Him. Love each other. And as hard as it is to get along with those people, whoever those people are, you'll never outlove them more than you'll love Jesus. Or maybe I should say this. You'll never love Jesus more than you love them. Let that sink in for a minute. You can't love Jesus and not love them. That's why these people that say, me and Jesus, we're just out in a boat and we're fishing and we're having a good time. Well, you can go out in a boat and have a good time with Jesus, but you can't stay there. You've got to go love people. God's love is not special to you. God's love is not only directed to you. It's directed to everyone. And remember how Jesus says we're to love? As I have loved you. As He's loved me. And I know my thoughts. And I know my actions. And I know even some of the times when I do good things. It's so that Laura will love me. Has nothing to do with Jesus. Just sometimes she'll cook a little something I like better. And sometimes I do things just so I can get in my way. And then sometimes I'm just downright rotten. But yet Jesus died for me. He laid down His life for me. Because He loves me. And even when I mess up, I think about Peter. Probably getting ahead of myself this week, but I think about Peter, who says, Lord, I love you more than all these. And he denied Him 3 times, and Jesus says, Peter, do you love me more than these? There's been times, I don't know about you, there's probably been times where I think, Lord, I love you more than anybody else in this church. And He says, do you? If you love me more than anybody else in this church, why don't you love those people in the church? So I ask you again, how's your love life? Is there something hindering it? Is there something blocking it? I can guarantee you, if you got a problem with a brother, you're not right with Jesus. This time, I'm going to ask for a song of invitation. And at this time, if there is a need in your life, remember, Jesus said, whatever you ask in my Father's name, He will give it. You got a grudge against a brother? Take it to the Father. Say, Father, help me. And, then, by the way, do what He says do. Leave your offering at the altar and go to them. Love them. But until we love each other, they won't know that we love them out there. As we sing.